So, hello everybody, and welcome to this morning's session. Some of you will know me already, and for those of you who don't, my name is Mark Concannon. I'm the Managing Director and founder of Pestcon Consultancy, Ireland's largest independent pest control consultancy firm. So we will, I hope now, this session will go on for about 30 minutes to 40 minutes. Hopefully I won't put you off your breakfast or lunch. A lot of the images are some of the images I've taken myself, and it'll give you some guidance into what to expect and some tips as well on how to prevent infestations in your premise. So, okay, let me just see this. Okay, here we go. So FSAIA. Okay, so did you know that 74% of store closures in 2023 in Ireland were due to pest issues and poor housekeeping? This is why we are here today. If I can give you, if you can take some inkling or information away from today that will help you to prevent this happening to your store, it's been a worthwhile session for everybody. So, FSAI issued 4 enforcement orders in January due to live rodents in kitchen, dodgy meat and more. That was 10th of February 2023. Dublin grocery store slapped with closure order due to cockroach infestation. HSE inspectors discovered cockroaches at all life stages in various areas of the store. And that was the 12th of December 2023. Rodent droppings and dozens of cockroaches among the reason for the latest business closures in 13th of July in 2023. So we will go on. So this is the agenda for today. I'm going to go through rodents that affect your store, rodent signs and sightings, insects that affect your store and the identification, and the principles of pest control and proofing and housekeeping as well. So rodents that affect your store, can you name them? So this little guy, he's got a brown fur, white underside. This is a field mouse, okay? So field mice tend to stay outside. They do not want to be inside. They feed off nuts, berries, small little insects. They will happily live outside, but they do tend to come inside as well. They're not seen in the pest control industry as a pest, but when they do come in and they are a nuisance to the retailer, then they become a pest and they do need to be controlled. House mice. Okay, so these are the common guys that will come in. We're coming right into the winter season now. So it's a fight for survival for these guys. Okay, they want to get in, they want to get shelter, they want food, and then they want to breed and survive. Okay, so believe it or not, a good harsh winter. Okay, so you're going down into the minuses for a number of a week to 2 weeks will kill 90% of the rodent population. Okay, so it is, like I said, it is a fight for survival for these guys. The average mouse will produce 80 droppings per day. So if you can imagine, that's a lot of contamination that can be passed throughout your store or your premise. Okay, and then we have this guy. This is the Norway rat, also known as the brown rat. Rattus norvegicus, okay, and this is the #1 rat in Ireland. You can get another rat known as the black rat or the ship rat, but they are very, very rare, mainly associated in or around docks and on islands. But this is the rat that will invade your premise or your store. You know, you hear people saying, "Oh, I seen a big black rat the other day." It's not a black rat. The chances are the rat was wet and it just looked a little bit darker. And this guy is public enemy #1. So a few things to know about these guys, okay? They will produce 15 mils of urine a day. They will produce 50 droppings a day. And the Achilles heel to the rat is they must, in order to survive, they must drink 60 mils of water a day, okay? So pest control is all about knowing your pests, knowing how to control them. And once you have this, you know, information that these need to drink 60 mils of water a day. So it's about housekeeping in and around your building, minimizing the the water source for these guys. Mice, on the other hand, they don't need a water source. They will get all their moisture from the food that they eat, and they will eat both animal and plant-based foods. So the life cycle of a mouse. From conception to maturity is 12 weeks. Okay, they have a gestation period of just 3 weeks. The average mouse will have anywhere between 10 to 14 young. The maturity is 3 to 6 weeks. And mice typically survive for less than a year in the wild. Now that's outside. In favorable conditions inside, they will survive longer. Now, here's a little bit of trivia for you. So if you left 2 mice in a room for a year and gave them ideal conditions with a food source, when you open that door in 1 year's time, how many mice would you think would be in that room? 2,000. So it's, I mean, these little guys, they are breeding machines. Like, I mean, left in a room for a year, 2,000 mice, just from a male and female starting off in that room. Life cycle of a rat is the very same as a mouse. They will have a smaller brood, so they will have up to 10, can push it up to 12. Again, it all depends on the conditions. Again, when they're inside, it is favorable. It's dry, it's warm, and with a food source, they will thrive. So again, if you left 2 rats, a male and a female, in a room and locked the door, gave them ample food and water, you come back in a year's time, there will be 800 rats in that room. Okay. So now, so signs of rodents, infestations, and what to look out for. And again, if you have any questions throughout this presentation, the more questions you have, the better. I will happily answer them at the end of the session. So signs to look out for: live and dead rodents. Okay, when your staff members could be cleaning up, they might see a dead rodent in the yard. They might see a dead rodent behind a fridge. Fridges are, you'd often see them to go in behind for the heat of the motor. Droppings also is a big one. You will find droppings, mice droppings. Again, they do 80 droppings a day. So if you do have rodents in your building, the chances are you're going to find droppings. So here's one here: nod lagging. Okay, and I'm going to touch on this. This was taken above a chiller. It's so important about suspended ceilings. I can't emphasize this enough. So if you have a pest control company and they're looking after your pest control in your store, before they leave, please ask them, have you checked the ceilings? Okay, because this is where the rodents are going to be. It's the same with your own house. If you had rodents in your house, the likelihood are they're going to be up in the attic. They will live within the fabric of the building. They live up in the ceilings. They will live in the fabric of the walls. And it's only then at nighttime that they will come out and start to feed. So you can see here, so this was a rat, and you can see the little black specks here. So that was the nod insulation here, the lagging. Okay, so and that's, they will use this. This is ideal nest material. They bring it back to the nest then. Okay, smear marks. So what are smear marks? Smear marks are marks made from the continuous passage of a mouse or a rat over one period, over one area over a period of time. Okay, so I took this image. This was in a store behind a bread shelf. So there was a lot of issues, bread being eaten, crackers being eaten, and so on. So obviously, you can only do so much inspecting during normal working hours. So that's why we went in at night time here. I requested that all the bread shelves are removed from the wall, so that we could get a clear understanding of exactly what was going on. And you can see the little discoloration here, the smear marks. So those smear marks are caused from grease build up from the rodent's body, urine, and just dirt. Because you can see here, this, believe it or not, this is just droppings. And it was, the minute that shelf came out, this smell, very like a pet shop, really strong smell of ammonia, and that's the smell from the urine. Okay, so that needed a deep clean. The ingress point was identified and pest proofed, and that was the end of the problem for the retailer. Again, damaged wiring. So I'll touch base on this in another slide down the road, but rodents need to gnaw. Okay, and again, they will do damage to wire. So something will go on you, whether it be your routers, your modems, electrical items, and again, alarms being activated. So calls being logged in the wee hours of the morning, the alarm guys come out, they inspect the area, and lo and behold, the cables of the alarm have been chewed, or else the rodents themselves are getting picked up on the infrared monitors. Nested materials. So again, doing your regular cleans under shelving as well, you could come across some nesting material. And a good little tip for retailers, if you do find nested material, say for instance, an empty Cadbury's packet of crisps, empties bar of chocolate, check the date, check the expiry date on that packet of crisps or on the bar of chocolate, because that could be a clue as to how long that infestation has been going on for. Like if you think about it, if you have like a chocolate bar wrapper there and the expiry date is 2019 and you've still got activity, you know, the infestation has been going on for some time. And it can be going on unnoticed as well. And again, scratching noises. And this is what I mean by about going on unnoticed. I had a call just recently where there was an active ongoing rat infestation in the ceiling in the ceiling void above the offices of a store, and it was only the store manager heard the scratching noises. He flagged the issue, and lo and behold, it was rats up in the ceiling, and it was going on for months, unbeknown to the pest control operator. And again, because there was no control points in the ceiling, so they were completely unaware. They had all the control points on the shop floor, in the deli, and the ceilings weren't being inspected whatsoever. So what to do if there is a sighting in your store, or if you do find evidence of a rodent? Okay, the first thing you do is you treat the area like a crime scene. Okay, if activity was spotted back of house away from the customers, do not clean up. Okay, because the more information you give the pest control operator, or the abbreviation I use is PCO, it just gives them, it means they can identify by the type of droppings. They may be able to see the smear marks, again, damaged packaging and so on. So do not clean up. Obviously, if it's front of house, if it's on a shelf where customers are, you've got to clean that up. But what I would say is take a photograph of it. Okay, so treat the area like a crime scene. Take the photograph if it is front of house. If it's back of house, just leave it and put the call in straight away to the PCO. So by doing this will help the PCO to determine the pest and what steps to take next. So once you treat the area like a crime scene, you've taken your photographs, you've left everything behind, you then log a call with your pest control provider. Okay. Once the initial call out is attended to, it is of the utmost importance that the PCO carries out a thorough inspection of the entire store. Okay. I mean, I can't emphasize this enough, for the importance that it's a thorough inspection. Just for the pest control operators just to come out, remove the rodent from the trap, and then head off again without giving any recommendations. It's not going to cut the mustard. You'll just be going around in a continuous circle, ongoing pest issues. You want to get that problem dealt with ASAP. The PCO must make the necessary recommendations that are contributing to the unwanted pest ingress. So again, if a pest is in your store, got in there some way, so you must be able to have the communication with the pest control provider and say, okay, Mr. Pest Control Provider, how did this rodent get in and how do we prevent this from happening again? The PCO then must follow up in accordance with the SLA. So depending on your service level agreement, you may have follow-ups daily, follow-ups every second day. And then again, some SLAs are different depending on the business. You could have follow-ups until 2 all clear visits, follow-ups until 3 all clear visits. If it's a rat in the store, especially in a high sensitive zero tolerance area, I would be recommending that follow-ups are done daily. Okay, so carry out the recommendations. It is so important to address the recommendations made by the pest control operator in a timely manner, and failure to carry out the recommendations could lead to an ongoing issue and result in a store closure. So if your pest control provider says to you, look, This is where I think the rodent is getting in. You've got to seal up this ASAP. Seal it up ASAP. Don't say, oh yeah, okay, grand. See you now. All the best. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. Please carry out the recommendations ASAP. It will prevent a lot of hassle down the road, and it's all about being proactive. Check your in-store CCTV system. Recently as well in a store, we had a rat that was trap shy, bait shy. You wouldn't go near anything. It was only for the CCTV system that we were able to identify the habitual movement of the rodent in the store at nighttime, which then led us to see that the rodent was using an open drain behind the back of a fridge. I mean, this store had issues for months, if not years, with rats. They called me in. We got the building up to an acceptable pest proof and standard, but it was down to the one last rat in the store. And I mean, it was like this rat owned the store. It wasn't belonged to the retailer anymore. It was the rat store. The rat was, because he wasn't going near any traps, wasn't going near any of the rodenticides. It was happy. It was so well used to the workings of the store. It knew exactly where to get a water source. It knew exactly where to get food, and it was hoarding and bringing everything back down into the stores behind the fridge. And that went on, I mean, that went on for about 4 weeks, until eventually then it was identified, and it was the CCTV that we were able to understand where it was going. So communication is key. Ruth touched on this earlier on. Before your technician leaves, he or she speak to the technician and ask the following questions. Have you carried out a thorough inspection? And remember this, if you take one little piece of information from today away with you, the ceiling voids. Okay, I cannot emphasize the importance of it enough. 80 to 90% of your stores will have suspended ceiling tiles above the deli, above the main floor, and also back of house. So please, even check your pest control folders today. Check when the last inspection was done. If it's more than 6 to 8 weeks away, log the call with your pest control provider. Say you'd like a full routine inspection carried out today or this week. You want to get winter ready, and you also want control points put up in the ceiling voids. I can't emphasize the importance of doing this. And then ask, what's the plan of action now while we were addressed? So they'll give you the recommendations, you carry out the recommendations, and then while you're doing your recommendations, what's the plan of action? So what are they going to do? Are they going to come back daily? Are they going to come back every second day? And so on, and discuss this. And again, communication, keep communicating with the pest control provider. I know you could be very busy in the store. You mightn't have time, but if it's just before your pest control provider leaves, just ask the question, how is everything? Okay, and do not be left thinking, it's that time of year, we always get activity around this time. Our staff are leaving the door open, okay? So do not accept that we're coming into winter. Yeah, we always get activity. We always get activity here. You should never get activity. You should have a zero tolerance approach when it comes to rodents in your store. So, did you know rats can travel up to 3 kilometers for a food source? So, I just kind of give you a little bit of perspective here. This is a retail unit here in the center. You've got these open fields, and then location is key as well. Okay. So you can just imagine all the rodents and the pests living in the fields, and we're coming into winter now. So the food sources outside will start to diminish, and that's why they need to find food further afield. So you can imagine your food premises here. You've got open bins, you know, that's given off the scent. Although rodents have a very poor sense of sight, they have an excellent sense of smell. So they will be attracted to your food premise, okay? And then again, like I said, location is key. An environmental risk assessment carried out by the pest control operator can determine how many visits per annum your store requires. So take, for instance, this store here. You've got a nice hedgerow here, a lot of undergrowth. I mean, it could be a harborage for many, many rodents. So again, it's different than having a shop bang in the middle of a shopping center, because the shopping center themselves will have an external perimeter of pest control in place. Multiple units in that shopping center will also have pest control in place. So if you've got a little unit in the center of a shopping center, you're not going to need as many visits per annum as, say, the likes of this store, which is smack bang in the middle of a field. Okay, and again, they will travel up to 3 kilometers to find the food source. So here's a little
good evening.
video.
It started with one rat in a cabinet. Now, Countdown's rodent problem is a lot worse.
More than a dozen rats have been caught in the past 72 hours at a Dunedin Countdown supermarket. And now new video has emerged of a mouse crawling over an open bowl of salad in one of the chain's Christchurch stores. Juliet Speedy reports.
It's enough to put you off your salad. Potato salad, to be precise, which is where this mouse was filmed scurrying around at Countdown Eastgate in Christchurch. A shocked Chinese tourist posted the video to social media. His words are translated to English, that they were shocked when I informed the staff. Then they accidentally let the mouse escape. But they did not stop selling and continued to greet customers that are now put off.
In the deli section, it's rank.
Oh, I think it's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
Don't want to go in there at all. Buy food from there.
Pest controllers were seen at Eastgate today. The government food watchdog says it's concerned and is investigating.
We became aware of it yesterday, on Sunday, and we had a senior food compliance officer there today having a look at the store. We've asked for a report from Woolworths.
And that's because it comes just weeks after this currently closed Dunedin store discovered a rodent infestation, with rats still being exterminated there today.
Definitely put me off here.
I always shop at Pack and Save, so it hasn't really affected my shopping.
That's why I'm here.
It's a serious problem, for the health of people.
So now, and again, Ruth touched on this. Do you remember this one? And again, it's the Brennan's bread with the rat. And that's the reputational damage to the brand alone, to your store brand. It's not good. Like this one made headline news. So yeah, do not let this happen to you. And again, a couple of little tips that I'm going to present to you now soon will minimize, and that's what it's about. It's about minimizing the risk of this happening to your store. So I'm just going to touch base on some because it's not just rodents that affect your store and can lead to closures. It's flying and crawling insects also. So I'm going to do a little quiz here, just to see. Going to go through a couple of pests and insects, and at the end of it then I'm going to repeat this slide and hopefully you should be able to name them all. So this one here is our common housefly. Okay, so common houseflies, if you have an infestation of common houseflies within your store, the likelihood of the source is going to be bins. Okay, open bin areas out the back. It could be bins in the store. I had one recently where it was a feminine hygiene bin, hadn't been emptied in some time, and the flies were coming from that. And again, a lot easier to control these guys and find a source as it is to control little smaller flies. Again, we have another fly. It's quite similar to this, and this is called the lesser housefly. Okay, lesser houseflies, these guys are not attracted to UV light. So the likelihood of these going into one of your fly control units in your store is very, very slim. If they do go in, it'll be literally just a blunder. You'll often see these guys, they will fly in a little triangular pattern right in front of your lampshades of your deli, and they're very, very annoying. And these are lesser housefly. And how we tell the difference, they're quite similar. The lesser housefly is a little bit smaller. But how us pest controllers distinguish between the two it's the wing vein. So you can see here the wing vein of the lesser housefly reaches right to the very tip of the wing. And if you look here on the common housefly, the wing vein is bent and it doesn't reach to the tip. Again, now lesser houseflies associated with the likes of poultry farms. Okay, and what we find here as well is if you have a pigeon problem in and around your store, you could have pigeons in your yard where they're fouling down onto the floor. onto the ground outside. That becomes wet, okay, and it provides an ideal breeding ground for the flies. They love decaying organic matter. So feces, whether it be it could be dog feces, I mean animal feces. If you're in the middle of a field, again, like I said before, there could be cows nearby, the cow pats. These flies will breed, and then they will come and ingress into your store. So it's so important to keep your doors and windows closed. And if you do have windows, especially leading into your food premises, that they have the appropriate fly screens installed on them. Next up, we have this guy. I'm sure a lot of you will know what this is. This is the blue bottle. Okay, so it's a carnivore. It will feed off meat. So if you have these in your store, the likelihood is something has died in the store. Okay, whether that be a dead rodent, or it could be a pigeon trapped in an air vent that has died, a bird's nest, again, all about, and a lot of this time can all be happening above the suspended ceilings in your store. And then this is the cluster fly, also known as Pollinia rudis. These flies will frequent within the roof spaces of your premise. It's the female that comes in, she will overwinter. And what you can find here is these start dropping down from the suspended ceiling of your store. And again, remember, take away from today, your suspended ceilings. Very important that there's adequate pest control measures up in the suspended ceilings. So we continue on with some flies. So we're getting down to the little smaller flies now, and it can be very, very difficult to control the smaller flies, especially if you cannot find a source. So this little guy, this is the fruit fly. And how you'll know this, it'll have a bright red or orange eye. Okay, so if you just think orange for fruit, again, it's all about finding the source for these guys. You can actually control these guys without actually even having to carry out any insecticidal treatment. And I'll show you one instance in a couple of slides up. This guy is known as the drain fly, also known as the elmidge. And what you will find, again, they like damp organic matter. So they'll be frequenting in around the drains. So it's so important to keep your drains clean from any organic matter, because it does build up and it goes like sludge, and it just provides an ideal breeding ground. Once these find the sludge, it'll just get out of control. This guy is called a forward fly, also known as a coffin fly. Looks like a little prawn along the back of its on its back. Very, very small flies. Again, they're also known as scuttle flies, so they will actually crawl around more so than fly. And they I had one store that had a problem with these for years. I believe it. So they called me in to investigate it. I said, I believe the problem is coming from under the ground, because they were coming up the back of an electrical switchboard, and you could see them all in the electrical switchboard. So I done a bit of rooting around. I removed some floor and looked under, and there was literally a lake of sludge under the ground. Okay, the store had to close for 3 weeks. Contractors went in, lifted up the floor, and we removed all the sludge. And I mean, you wouldn't believe that the issue was an old redundant grease trap that no one knew about. And so what was happening was all the waste from the sink pipes, the dishwashers, was all leading into the grease trap. The grease trap was corroded. So basically all the waste was seeping in underneath the floor for years. And I think it was cost a retailer €25,000 just for us to go in and get rid of the sludge. But then again, they had to do a full revamp then again. So I think in the end, it cost about €180,000 plus the 25,000 for the clean. So yeah, nearly $250,000 just for tiny little fly, not bigger than 2 mils. So yeah, when the smaller the fly, it can be difficult to find the source. And again, this is a wasp, so this time of year they're going to be tending to die off, but they will come then and start making their nests in around April. So with the wasp, they don't tend to bother us during the summer months from April to say late August and September. It's when the queen stops producing her larvae, because when the queen produces the larvae, the larvae produce a sugary substance for the wasps, and it's almost like a little reward. So once the larvae stop producing the sugary substance, and that's coming into late September into October, that's when they start affecting us, because they've no more sugary substances, so they start coming after us for the sugary substances. So you could be sitting out in the beer garden one day drinking your Bulmers and you're just swarmed by the wasps. So crawling insects that affect your store. So again, we've been through the rodents, we've been through the flying insects. Now we're going to go through the crawling insects. Okay, so this one, very, very common. It's the black garden ant, Lasius in Niger. Again, they are a social insect. Okay, they come with large colonies. The queen will live for many, many years, can live up to 20 years. They feed off, it's called prophylaxis, which is they share their food. So this is key in pest controllers and how to control colonies, because we can use a gel bait, which means the workers will come up, they will eat the gel bait, and again, they share the food. So they'll come up and they'll bring the bait back down into the colony, and they can, so it's using the ants as little mini pest controllers themselves by giving them the bait, and then the bait then is brought down into the nest. Silverfish, so associated with damp, humid areas, you'll find these underneath the likes of your sink presses. Also in your own house, you will get them in showers, in around shower trays. They feed off starches, especially the starches from glues. So you would have glues on floor covering. So if you have floor covering, say in your deli, and you can check them yourself, what happens over time is the floor covering starts peeling away from the wall. Moisture gets into that floor covering, and then it can provide an ideal harborage and a breeding ground for the silverfish. Easy enough to control, but you've got to get the leak or the humidity sorted first. And again, you have cockroaches. So this is a German cockroach. Okay, so two main types of cockroaches in Ireland. You've got the German cockroach and the Oriental cockroach, but the one that most likely will affect your stores is the German cockroach. Can be very difficult to treat depending on how bad the infestation is. So early detection with these guys is key. So if any of your staff see cockroaches, you log in the call, and then it's up to a monitoring and an insecticidal treatment from your pest control operator. Cockroaches can be as well. A lot of people, they will put in a call for a cockroach, but it may not be a cockroach. There's a lot of bugs out there, a lot of common beetles, cockchafers associated that look similar to cockroaches, but they're not. So again, if any of your staff members see anything, just take a little photograph. Again, it's treat the area like a crime scene as well. So if you see a cockroach there, take a photograph, try and get a clearest photograph as you possibly can, and it'll help the pest control operator determine what the insect is, correct identification, and once the pest controller has the correct identification, then they can apply the correct means of treatment. So complete metamorphosis. This is a fly life cycle. So it's egg, larvae, pupa, adult. Okay, so if you can find the source of the larvae, that's the golden rule. If you can find the larvae, you've a very good chance of getting full control of that insect. And I'll show you what I mean here now. Another few slides down the road. So there's 4 key principles of pest control, and they are as follows. You have E for exclusion, and that's coming down to pest proofing. You're keeping the pests out in the first place so that they don't become an issue. Or, which is restriction, you make it difficult for them. So I spoke earlier on about the rat needing to drink 60 mils of water a day. You clean up your spillages out the back. If there's puddles, try and keep the areas as dry as possible. And again, that goes for leaks, any spillages of water on your delis. Again, if you have a fish counter, just make sure that the ice tray is dripping and where is that going, and that water source is not available for a rodent should a rodent be in your store. Destruction, that's where the pest controller comes in. They use rodenticides and traps and sprays, and again, monitoring, plan preventive maintenance. And that's your 6 visits, 8 visits, 12 visits, depending on the environmental risk assessment and how many visits your premise should have. Now, the key ones here is, and this is for you, the retailers, exclusion and restriction are probably the most important aspects of these principles of pest control. Okay, because if you make it hard for them to get in, you don't afford them everything they need, shelter, food sources, that rodent won't, or that pest will not want to be in your store because they can't get in the first place. And again, you're restricting their food source, you're restricting shelter from them. So it's of the utmost importance that you, the retailer, exclusion, restriction. Okay, the destruction and monitoring is the easy part, but if you can get the exclusion and restriction right from the get-go, the likelihood of a pest getting into your store is very, very slim. So importance of finding the source. So this client called me in on their store as they had an ongoing rodent issues in the deli fishmonger with 170 visits carried out by the pest control operator in a 12-month period. So you can see here, this part is back of house. This is the serving counter, and out here where the timber floor is, this is where the customers will be. So this is a pest control operator trap. Rodent goes in and gets trapped. So this trap was going off many times with, like I said, 170 visits carried out in the 12-month period. They called me in to investigate to see what was going on. So you can see these little boxes here. So these were drilled down into the ground for Phillips head screwdrivers. I took these boxes off, and underneath the boxes was concealed cable runs. So you can see here the open pipe run coming up from the ground. Again, you see this little stain on the white cabling. That's the smear marks I talked about earlier on, the continuous passage of a rodent over one point in time. And there, just look at that there now. So you can see the damage that the rodent done to the electrical cabling. You can see the smear marks down here. So we identified the ingress point into the deli area. We got it pest proof. Now, before we pest proofed it, I had to get an electrician to make this safe. So once the electrician made it safe, then we were able to pest proof it properly. And that was the end of the issue. Now, there was a couple of extra issues externally with the building. The building wasn't up to an acceptable pest proofing standard. We got it to an acceptable pest proofing standard, and that was the end of the problem. And that's exclusion. And the exclusion is all down to you, the retailer. You get the pest proofing done and put a stop to it. So exclusion continuous store revamps. Hey, Mr. Contractor, don't leave without filling in the gaps you created. Okay, and again, both these images were in a new store deli just 2 days before handover. So what I do is I go in before the building is being handed over. I do a pest proofing snag. So it's just like a normal building snag, but it's a lot more in-depth, focusing solely on the possibilities of pest ingress points. Okay, so you can see here the heating pipes coming up to feed the ovens, and the gaps clearly around the pipes. Again, a pipe in at the back of a waste sink through the tiles. Not only is this an ideal ingress point for rodents, but if you think about it, water ingress. So you've got the sink pipes up above, the splashes water dripping down the wall. If water gets into that, ingresses into the wall cavity, again, a little fly comes along, finds the water, gets in, starts laying eggs, and then before you know it, you've got a tiny little fly issue, which can develop into a massive issue if not detected. And again, this can be all prevented at the point of before the deli or the refurb is handed over to the store. Okay, so the importance of being proactive. Ruth spoke about it. Being proactive is key. So what we do as well is we go in and we carry out night inspections on store refurbs. So you can see here, this was a store that had issues with rodents. Okay, so this is open drains that the rodents were using. Okay, so you can see here, when you take off the kickboards of the fridges, you can see it right at the back. that there's an ingress point that the rodents were using. Okay, and again, electrical cabling coming up from the ground, open cable run leading up from underground the roads were using. This section of store was closed for 3 days to shut down the fridges so that they could be taken away from the wall to get access to the pest proof. A lot of the fridges today are CO2, and it's not just a simple case of lifting up the fridge and pulling it away from the wall. The whole CO2 system has to be shut down, and that can take a couple of days. Again, this could all have been prevented, and I can show you here now. So this client, they give me the schedule for the year. I know exactly when the refits are happening. I call into the store. These are 11 p.m. inspections at night across the country. Identify, so you can see here the open drains, that when the fridges are all pulled out. The open drains, you got expansion joints here that the rodents can also use. They eat through the expansion joints. Got the open drains here. So these drains are going to be redundant with the new refurb. Okay, I highlight them there and then. I supply a report to the contractors. I supply a report to the client. And then on the night of the refurb, the contractors deal with the issues there and then. And again, being proactive, because as you can see from the previous slides, the cost of pulling out fridges, it can go into the thousands. So again, you can see here, so what I do, I do instruct the contractors on the correct materials to use. So you can see here they've used triple torsion wire mesh. This is triple torsion wire mesh. I don't know if you can see it, but it's what you can do is you can mold it and bend it, and you get it down into the hole. Okay, that's packed down into the hole, and then it's capped off with a expandable foam or concrete. Now, expandable foam on its own should never be used for pest proofing, okay? And I'll touch base on this now in another couple of slides down the road. In this instance, where you're using triple torsion wire mesh first, it's fine, and it actually acts like a glue, and it'll hold it in place. So then I provide a second report to the client saying, okay, there you go, you got your before and you got your after images. So there should never be an issue with rodents in at the back of those fridges going forward. And again, it's all about being proactive. So rodents' teeth. So this is an interesting one. So Mohs scale was developed by Frederick Moh in 1812, and it's a mineral, jewelers use it for a mineral hardness scale. Okay, so if you look at it here, 1 to 10. So talc is down at 1 or 0. So how this scale works is you go up 1, gypsum can scratch talc, calcite can scratch gypsum, fluorite, calcite, and so on, up till you get to up to a diamond, which is one of the toughest minerals and gems there are. The only thing that will scratch a diamond is another diamond. Steel is in around here. So it's in around just about 4.5, in around, okay. Rodent's teeth is here. So the enamel on rodent's teeth is actually tougher than steel. I've seen steel toe cap boots being chewed by rodents. So if you can just imagine the damage that these little guys can do if they get into your store, and you can see expandable foam, you are wasting your time. So if you go around your premise, I can guarantee you today after this call, you have a look at your air conditioning pipes, you have a look at pipes outside. They're going to be plugged with expandable foam. That expandable foam needs to come out ASAP, and you either use a combination of mesh and cement, because you will not stop rodents with expandable foam. It's a cheap fix, and it's easy. You know, I mean, you could go around the building with expandable foam and you could have the whole place pest proof within about 2 hours, whereas you do it properly, you know, you can go around the whole building pest proof within about 2-3 days, but you're using a combination of mesh and cement. So rodents have what's called an open tooth root. So just like us humans, our nails grow continuously. They must know to keep their teeth filed down. They don't have little nail files that they can go around filing their teeth like we would our fingernails. Their teeth will grow approximately 1 mil a day if they are not gnawing. And this is what happens to a rodent if they do not gnaw. They will get lockjaw. Okay, the teeth will just grow so big that they cannot eat, and they just end up dying. So as a form of survival, they must keep their teeth filed down. Now we go through some of the most common exclusion issues I do find during my inspections. And here's an aircon manhole. Okay, so these are underground manholes. Again, rodents are very sneaky. So that's why I do say never accept the recommendation that staff are leaving the door open. Rodents will find another way to get into your store. Most likely ingress point is underground using service cable, open service cable ducts. Okay, so these can be pest proof. Again, you get the mesh, you pack it in first with the mesh, and then you cap it off with some cement. Here's a classic example of expandable foam being used around air conditioning pipes. And again, after this call, go out and have a look at your air conditioning pipes. If you've got expandable foam around your air conditioning pipes, you are at risk of a pest getting into your store. And I'm going to show you the consequences of this one in another slide. Again, so you got gaps. Ruth touched on it earlier about brush strips on your doors. So when the doors are closed at night, you can imagine this door closed at night. That door may as well not even be there if you're a rodent. I mean, you know, you may as well just leave the door open because there's a gap big enough for the rodent to push through. Now, when fitting rodent-proof brushes to your doors, and you must remember that they must be of hard, durable construction, the rodent-proof brush strips. You can get cheap rodent-proof brush strips, but they must be of good quality, a hard bristle. They must be fitted to the outside of the door. Now, it's not always possible to fit them on the outside of the door, especially when it comes to auto shutter doors. But rule of thumb, you must fit the brush strip to the exterior of the door. And what's the reason for that, you may ask? Rodents, again, I said it before, they very, very poor eyesight. But they have what's on their bodies, guard hair. So it's a very, very fine hair that comes out longer than their actual hair, the normal hair. And they use that the very same way a blind person would use a cane. So they're tapping along the side of the wall constantly. And if they feel, as they come along, they come up to the door, and if they can feel a gap under the door, they know that they can squeeze in and go through the brush on the other side. Whereas if you have the brush on the outside of the door, it's creating the illusion for the rodent that it's a continuous wall. So they'll keep tapping with their guard hair. They feel the brush strip thinking it's the continuation of the wall, and they'll keep on moving on. So remember, brush strips always should be on the outside. So here we have our expandable foam, and you can see this was a rat gnawed in through an electrical switch panel. Again, don't use expandable foam. Again, store rebuilds, Mr. Contractor comes along, puts in some cables, does not think of the consequences 3-4 months down the road. And the rodents are getting into the back of the sink units. And again, on the outside, you can see here, gap left, ideal. Like rodents will crawl up and down these walls like spiders. So when pest proofing goes bad. So this was one I discovered. The recommendation was to seal the hole. And what happened here was the rat had eaten through the cement before it hardened and cured. Now, if the contractor had used the wire mesh first into the hole and then screed it off with cement, that wouldn't have happened. Here's another one for you. Again, this is in an open drain. You can see here how the contractor used a thin screed of concrete. The rat, again, remember the Mohs mineral scale, they will just go through concrete like butter. It will just crumble in their mouths, and then they'll make an ingress point there. Not a problem to them. So again, the importance of using mesh in conjunction with. Here's another one that was done. You can see here, this is an ESB switch room. You can see here how it was pest proofed in the past by a contractor using cement. But when I used my borescope camera, I got it done underneath, and you could see it wasn't pest proof properly, and there was ingress points still left. And you can see here there's expandable foam that was used here in the past. So again, looks lovely on the top side. On the other side, you can see the gaps. It was missed, and it allowed rodents to ingress. So here's one. Got a call from a client. There was a horrendous smell in the toilets, went on for months. The They had drain companies out. They were convinced it was the drains. So after multiple drain cleans, nothing was working. They called me in. I opened up this access panel here. In behind, you could see all the Nod Kingspan insulation. Okay. I removed a family of 10 dead rats from this cavity behind the RSJ, all because expanding foam was used to attempt to pest proof. And it was that image I showed you earlier on with the expandable foam in around the air conditioning pipe. So again, after this call, go out and have a look at your AC pipes, and if there's expandable foam in them, the likelihood is it mightn't happen today, it mightn't happen tomorrow, but the risk is there. Restriction. So this is the part where you, the retailer, can make it difficult for the insects and the pests. So this was a brand new store, opened 5 months, and had continuous ongoing issues with multiple unsuccessful fly treatments carried out by the pest control operator. So the client called me in, Mark, what can we do here? We've had multiple fly treatments, we're still having issues. So I done a thorough inspection, and you can see here, this is the sink overflow in the deli. Okay, so you can see this. I spoke earlier on about decaying organic matter. You can see all this lovely decaying organic matter built up within the overflow of the sink. And what has happened here was, when they fill up the sink, it's potentially acting as a grease trap. The sink, obviously the water is not going to be clean. It'll be dishwater. There could be cream, milk in it. It overflows down into the overflow pipe. When I remove this, lo and behold, this is the larvae of the fruit fly. Okay, and I spoke earlier on about egg, larvae, pupa, adult. I was able to solve this issue by removing the pipework, deep cleaning the pipework, putting it all back together again, and that was the end of the fly problem. There was no need to be using the insecticide because the source was found. So if the source can be found, well then that's going to be the key to getting full control. So again, if you have your your pest control operators coming in, they're doing the fly treatments for you, you're still having issues with flies, you need to ask the pest controller, have you found the source? It's so important. You have got to find the source of where these are coming from, where they're laying their eggs, where the larvae are. Find the source and you will deal with the infestation. And that's restriction. Again, exclusion, restriction is all down to the retailer, the housekeeping, the pest proofing. So the most common housekeeping issues, the bins, okay? Again, rats will travel 3 kilometers for a food source. You can imagine the scent that these bins are emitting. So it's just going to draw in the rodents. So clean bins, the bins with the lids fully down. If your bins are overflown, well then you need to get onto the waste management and then up the visits for removing the bins. Also the bungs at the end of the bins, make sure all your bins have the rubber bungs at the bottom, because the drainage holes at the bottom of the bins, if it's missing the bung, it provides an ideal ingress point for the rat, or just to pop up there. And again, that's an all-you-can-eat buffet. And if a rodent is, if your bins are like this, and a rodent is feeding away happy, it's going to be very, very hard for the pest control operator to get any level of control, because the rodent will become bait shy. Why would it go near the bait points? Why would it near go to rodenticide when it has an all-you-can-eat buffet? Now, this one is a common one. So this was taken in a deli. I removed the kick plates. Now, what happens is, over time, when your staff are cleaning in the deli area and they're sweeping, they sweep the crumbs underneath the tiny little gaps underneath the kickboards. If there is gaps under the kickboards, the food and the crumbs will go under here. Again, an all-you-can-eat buffet for rodents. So they will happily, like I said, they'll be nesting in the fabric of the building. They'll be nesting in the walls. They could be nesting up in the ceilings at night time, which is when the rodents become most active, because they're nocturnal. They will, when the shop is closed and you're all gone home, they will come down then, and they will get their food source. And again, an all-you-can-eat buffet. This one was again another fly issue. It was fruit fly. And underneath the dishwasher, you could see here, staff took the eye off the ball. They let the sludge build up So it turned into wet, decaying organic matter. You can see here all these little white dots. They're all the fly larvae. So by simply just cleaning up this and one insecticidal treatment, and that was the issue solved. Again, stock rotation, especially when it comes to fruit fly in your shop floor, fruit and veg section, it's so important to make sure that the stock is properly rotated and there's no decaying veg or fruit left lying behind. Also check underneath the shelves, you know, something could drop down, whether it be an orange, a lemon, anything. Once it starts fermenting, fruit fly gets in. Especially as well, your orange juice machines, housekeeping in and around the orange juice machines is so important in controlling flies. You might have recommendations to put extra fly units in your store. I'm not a key fan on just pepper and fly control units all around your store to solve a problem, and I'll touch base on that in the upcoming slides. Again, housekeeping, spillages, syrups. I spoke earlier on about trophallaxis and how the ants are social feeding insect. You can see here, all it takes is for one ant to come up, find a bit of syrup or find some sugar. He'll notify the rest of the colony, and then you just see them coming up in trails. And again, keeping your kitchen clean. You can see here now, this kitchen wouldn't be ideally in great condition. Full plates, dirt, you know, again, all you can eat buffet. It's all about restriction, making it difficult for them. And the responsibility is up to you, the retailer. So destruction. So this is where the pest controller comes in, rodenticides, okay? We're in an era now where rodenticides are being reduced dramatically. CREW, the campaign for responsible rodenticide use. And from 1st of January 2025, pest controllers will no longer be able to use rodenticides away from the building. So fence line perimeter baiting will no longer be prohibited. So again, it's going to make it an awful lot difficult for the pest control operator. They can only have external bait now in and around the building on the outside. So all the bait points have to be up against the building. You can't have them away from the building near a fence line. So again, traps, instant capture and kill units. So these are the methods that the pest controller can use. You have the rodenticides, you've got your traps, and then also your insecticides, and that all falls under destruction. So this is something that you, the retailer, can't do. This is up to the professionals who are fully qualified to use these products. Monitoring, and again, these are your monitoring bait boxes. So you'd have these in various areas around your premise. It will give the pest controller an indication, an early warning if there is any activity in the units. The pest controller should have non-tox in these boxes, and it's only when he comes back to check to see if there is activity. If there is nibbles on the bait, well then they have justification then to change it to toxic, and then they must follow up accordance with the label and the CREW legislation. Other types of monitoring are insect monitors. You can see here, this is a cockroach trap. It's called a high trap or cockroach hotel. And again, you see here, there's a German cockroach on this. You got some food attractant here, and this is a sticky board. So they come up a little ramp, and they're attracted to the food, and they get stuck. So a good indicator to give the pest control operator an idea of the level of infestation that's in the store. Like I've seen these, and they are black with cockroaches now. Luckily, this is only the start of a problem. The retailer was able to notify us early enough, so we got control early. And again, you got your insect light traps. So I see these as a monitor. I don't see these as a reason to control insects. These are simply just a monitor, and they will help the pest control operator understand what types of flies are in your store. So say, for example, pest control operator does a seasonal routine inspection, opens up this, and it's full of fruit flies. Okay, so the first thing that pest control operator should do, okay, there's a fruit fly problem going on in this store. I need to find the source. Okay, so once you can find the source, like I did earlier, get rid of the larvae, and that will eliminate the problem. Thinking of doing pest control yourself? you must have a PMU number. It's a pest management user number issued by the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine. You can see here, this is my PMU number. I'm a member of Basis Prompt. In order to hold a PMU number, you must obtain a mandatory level 3 award for pest management. All PMUs must sign up to a CPD continual professional development scheme with either Basis Prompt, BPCAA, or ISIS. So the first two are English, and the last one is ISIS. It's the Irish Agricultural Supply of Industry Standards. Okay. Again, like I said, I'm with Basis Prompts. I must keep, only yesterday I was on a webinar where you got to earn your CPD points. PMUs must keep their CPD points up to date. 20 points required each year in order to remain listed on the Department of Agriculture Register of Pest Management Users, okay? So if at the moment, if you're doing pest control in your store and you hold none of these qualifications, you need to stop ASAP, because you have got to be qualified. I mean, if you had an electrical problem in your store, you're not going to go around starting to rewire electrical issues because you're not a fully qualified electrician. If you're not a fully qualified pest control operator, you should not be carrying out pest control yourself. So insect light traps, EFKs, electric fly killers, this is what I spoke about. Remember, fly units are only a monitor. They are not a solution to fly problems. So again, if you have a fly problem in your store and the pest control operator is saying you need more fly units, no, you don't need more fly units. Your pest control operator needs to find the source of the fly problem and where that fly problem is coming in. Is it house flies? Are they coming in through open windows, etc.? They're to be installed 90 degrees to an entrance of a door, not to be facing at the main entrance. And the reason for this is light travels in straight lines, okay? So these units emit UVA light. So these are in a straight line. So if you can imagine, you open up your entrance of your store, and if you can see a fly unit staring you in the face during the summer months when your store door is open, that UVA light is going to be attracting. Okay, it's going to be attracting in unwanted flies into your store. So if you can, you put the fly unit 90 degrees perpendicular to the entrance of the door and shining down the whole length of your deli to get maximum efficacy of that fly unit. So here we go. This is, we touched base on this earlier. So let's see now if you can name these now yourselves. Yeah, that's the fruit fly. The orange eyes, so remember fruit, orange, tiny little guys. Again, that was the one I found in the sink there with all the larvae. Drain fly, okay. Forward fly, or also coffin fly. That's the one that cost the retailer nearly $250,000. Again, little humpback. They're also called humpback flies or scuttle flies, but they have that little prawn-like characteristics markings on their back. And then the common wasp. We have these other ones. These now you should be all able to name these. That is your common housefly, your lesser housefly, and again the wing veins that will distinguish. You got your blue bottle, and then again similar to the blue bottle, doesn't have the blue distinguishing color, but it does have brown furry back on it. That's the cluster fly, again inner seeding voids. Crawling insects that affect your store. Your ant, your silverfish, and your German cockroach. So it's not just rodents and insects that can be a nuisance in your store. So if you can have a look at this here, this will play. This bird was trapped in this store for 2 months. And because of a nuisance in the store, the retailer had to close the seating section of the store because the bird was fouling the seats down below. Now, this bird was happily living off scraps, crumbs in the store. The bird was getting, like a mouse, was able to get enough moisture from the food that it was eating. Okay, so 2 months in the store, the retailer, we got the call. I sent down my wildlife management experts. So using a specialist technique known as mist netting, Pestcon consultancy wildlife management expert was able to capture the bird without harm and release back into the wild. So misnetting, misnetting, to require a license to misnet, you must be 5 years it takes to get a license for a misnetting. Okay, so what is misnetting? So if you think of a GAA post, okay, so 2 poles, you got your net in between, and then little pockets. So you numerous amount of pockets in the net. The bird is scared from one end of the store to the next, and the idea is it flies into the nets, drops down into the pockets, and that's it, captured. So that was a starling, 2 months in the store, and we got the call. We went down the next day, and we had it within a couple of hours. You can be lucky as well. It can take take an awful long time as well, depending on the environment. So if you're in a big warehouse, it really depends on the size of the building as well, and what technique to use to capture the bird. So this is just some of the services Pestcon consultancy offer. Detailed inspections, SSPRA. So what's an SSPRA? You're asking yourself. An SSPRA stands for Site-Specific Pest Risk Assessment, okay? So what I do is I risk assess your stores, your premise, of the likelihood of a pest being able to ingress, okay? So think of it like a BER rating for your house. The pest risk rating, it'll be RAG rated, red, amber, or green. So I go out, so depending on what I find, if there's environmental issues, if the building is in poor condition, if there's expandable foam being used or so on, if I'm after finding droppings in the ceilings, and that will all determine, based on a matrix that I've developed, that will determine what your risk rating is. So is it red, amber, or green? The goal for everybody is to have a green risk rating. But it really depends on the inspection that I carry out. So again, we spoke on this again as well: pest snag, building handovers, inspections, and bird control. Pest proofing on store. So we have a nationwide pest proofing division team with a dedicated team focused solely on pest proofing buildings with the correct materials. Okay. So we pest proof everything from distribution centers to coffee shops to corner shops. Nothing is too big or it's too small. And again, it's all about peace of mind for you, the retailer. When we go in, we identify the ingress points, we get them pest proofed, we get your store up to an acceptable pest proofing standard. And as we speak at the moment, and I said nationwide, north and south, my team is up in Strabane at the moment carrying out pest proofing on a store that had some recent issues. So they're getting their building ready for the winter. CCTV drain surveys, nationwide CCTV drain surveys to map out drain networks, identify breaches in the system, and then we can install RAF flaps. So and gives again peace of mind that your drain network is completely cut off from any rodent ingress. Deep cleaning, nationwide professional deep cleaning service, including canopy hood extraction cleaning, and also fly control. It's could supply the latest in LED sustainable fly controls. So I suppose we're coming near the end. So you got to ask yourself the question: is your premise up to an acceptable pest proofing standard, and are you winter ready? My details will be at the end of this presentation. If you feel any doubts about your premise, you can reach out to me. I can answer any questions you have, and hopefully a couple of questions have come in there now that I can answer. Yeah, so look, thank you very much. It's a pleasure having this opportunity to be able to speak to you all today. Again, there's my details. You can visit my website as well, and it'll give you a range of full suite of services that I